The Reliability Hero podcast is brought to you by the mainstream community. We'll have conversations with maintenance and reliability practitioners just like you. People who literally make stuff work on an industrial scale and also keep economies moving. Why hero? Because asset management tamely describes the risky and important work that you do, where a single misstep can cost millions of dollars and possibly lives. And because few things excite you more than making equipment and machines do more than they were ever designed to do. Faster, safer, longer, and more efficiently. I'm Andrew Idhammar. Welcome to the Reliability Hero podcast. For this episode of the Reliability Hero, we're talking to Idhammar. Now, Krista is the CEO and Executive Vice President of IDCON, but you may well know him as the guru. He was described to me as I'm a golfer, he's the Jack Nicklaus of golf. That's who Krista is. Over 40 years in the industry, started with the Swedish Merchant Marine and has really done everything. Mechanic, craftsperson, engineer, manager, consultant, educator, philosopher, reliability guru, and company leader. Krista, what a pleasure to welcome you to Reliability Hero.
Thank you so much. And actually, I'm not the president and CEO anymore. My son is that, and I am the founder and still very, very active in IDCON.
Okay. Well, just on that, how hard is it to let go? Was it difficult for you?
It's a long process to transfer a consulting company, because if you're going to be successful as a consultant, you have to reach a status of guru, or at least you're well known. Otherwise, you can't charge a fee, you see. Anyway, so it's a long process. And he joined the company 20 years ago. And the plan has always been, in the last 15 years, for him to take over. And it has taken a long time, and he does an excellent job at it. I'm very, very happy. So it has not been difficult to do that. And, 6 months ago, we reached a point where we actually sold the company to TRM Inc., but we are both very, very active, because that was part of it, that the company shall be independent and continue the way we've done before.
Okay,
so I'm still very active.
You mentioned the guru status. Is that something you're comfortable with?
Sometimes I'm blushing, It happens. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. And it's not anything anyone here in the company have said that I am. It is when people have introduced me in conferences and other things, it started popping up about 10 years ago, 10-15 years ago, that people use that. You can't self-nominate yourself, to that.
No, of course. But the reason I asked that, Krista, is that to become not just well-known, but to become lauded as probably the best in the industry, you've got to have done an awful lot. So when you started with a Swedish Merchant Marine, did you have an intent of where your life was going to go, or were you going to be a sailor for your life, or?
I just I just loved to go to sea, And at that time, we could go and come to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and we could have 3 weeks in port. Oh my God, that was fantastic, I went to museums and libraries and whatever they called it. But anyway, and now at the end of it, around 1968, it became containers, and you were just in and out of a port. You couldn't experience the countries you came to. So I saw that change, and I knew the whole time that I want to go to sea, but I'm going to go in the engine room, become an engineer, because then you can get a job ashore, because you knew that was going to happen one day. And it did happen one day, of course.
Okay. And then life obviously changed as an engineer, because then you got to the point of seeing exactly how things worked, what worked well, what didn't. And then was that the beginning of your maintenance journey?
It was really, because on board the ship in the engine room, we maintained very, very big diesel engines, turbines, boilers, pumps, everything. And it was reliability. We didn't call it that at that time, but was extremely important. I went through the Suez Canal or channel, I think 6 times. And it was always tense that nothing goes wrong now. And we saw what happened not long ago with the ship, right?
Okay. Oh no, I don't know what did happen.
Oh, it was a ship that failed in the canal.
Oh, that went sideways.
Yeah, it went sideways and actually blocked the whole canal, So we had realized how important that was, and I was on ships where we had fires and other things, and we were lucky to escape any major things. But anyway, it was very, very important. So, on board the ship at that time, it was not a question that you do inspections, for example, continuously inspections. And nobody told you to do it. It was just a way of life. And then you meet industry. And then you have to convince people that you actually have to do inspection and plan and schedule work, etc. So that was a new experience. But I really still love the area of reliability and maintenance because, it's 90% about people. 10% about technology. And I love technology too, I am a gadget person like any maintenance person.
Yeah. Okay.
But that combination, but to work with people, that's wonderful.
There seems to be a really common theme, talking to Cliff Williams or Dave Wilbur, and now yourself, that the people are the key, like they're the absolute key.
Absolutely.
And the management of people. So just going back to the beginning of the continuous inspections, and that no one called it reliability. What was it called? How was it explained?
I think it was, perhaps you used other terms. We have to keep everything running, etc., and we might have used the term reliability, but it didn't mean the same thing as now. It wasn't as widely expected and so forth. Keep things running. That was really what we talked about. And when we came to port, well, you wanted to go ashore and do things, but of course you had to do a lot of maintenance because that was the maintenance window you had, right?
Yeah.
We had the opportunity. And actually, that is very much the same in industry. If you take big paper machines, for example, they run between 4 and 6 weeks, and then you have a shutdown. And that's when you have to fix all maintenance that require that the equipment is down. So it was a very similar process, so to say.
Okay. What's your secret to managing people?
I think it is when you are a consultant, there are a couple of rules, and that is be humble. Don't come in as a smart whatever, because that's the way they think you think. So you show that I want to learn about you. What are you doing? Because they all are doing something well, right? Don't come in as a smart whatever. Right? Be humble. And then realize one thing. A lot of other consultants and also managers in plant, they believe that you just need to write up the process and send out a memo and document the process and have a couple of hallelujah sessions where you explain what we're going to do now. And now we're going to do this. And then they believe people are actually going to do it. Of course, it doesn't happen that easy, but they are too much engineers. So you have to realize another thing, and that is any result you're going to get from your intentions as a manager has to be executed by the frontline organization. And these are supervisors, planners, reliability engineers, maintenance operations coordinators, and the planners, of course. That's what it's going to happen, and tradespeople. That's who's going to do it. So they have to be supported. And in our work here, we spend 90% with the front line. Just get an agreement from top management. Work out the processes. Make them to sign off. Ask them to now support this visibly and with enthusiasm and by caring what happens. And then involve, so the people in the front line really understand that this is something we are going to do and it's important.
All right. So then how...
Yeah, please.
I was going to say, how important, Krista, is it that you spent the beginning of your career actually on the front line, working in the ships, working with the engines, to then be able to, as a consultant, to come back and go, guys, this is a plan I think we should be putting in place.
Yeah. No, to me that was quite obvious, because also as a consultant, I think it's very important that you don't only know how to set up the process, how to do work management plans. Anyone can do that. Just Google it, and you get all the answers there, and you can buy books, and hopefully buy my book, by the way, Knocking Gold. But anyway, anyone can do that. But you have to take the next step and go out and work with people and coach them. Sit with a planner and actually plan work with a plan. Understand that they have to deal with emotional priorities that are not real priorities. Okay, go and see the people who give them all these emotional priorities and explain to them. You have to be in the front line with the people. Otherwise, the change will not at all happen.
Okay, how difficult, or is there a key, do you think, to actually getting management to buy into new maintenance schedules? Because in looking at one of the videos on IDCON, and so there's a really great resource there there's a whole YouTube channel, and there was something about that, back in the 70s, they started talking about small improvements with planned maintenance. So that was the first time that came up. And then they changed the name, and they changed the name again. Yeah. So with management, is part of the buy-in telling them something new is going to happen, but the basis is still the same to actually do the work.
Hey, Google maintenance of the aqueducts in Rome and read the first book about how to manage maintenance. And it says basically, we inspected, we planned, we scheduled, and we did it, right? Nothing really changed. It's amazing, but it's common sense. And I think a key is that you come in and say, we're not going to give it a new acronym. We're going to just do common sense here. What you already always done, but you have put it in different names and you have confused the organization. So let us explain what the simple thing is.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, I can spend a couple of days in a plant and I said, tell me the story about the latest breakdowns you had, or whatever you like to call it, and they tell us that. And you will find that 70% of all of them are preventable. And you can then say, here you have 3 cases that happened just in the last 3 months. Let me show you what I talk about here. And if you had done these things, you would never have had them.
Okay.
And that's the kind of convincing, because otherwise I can do a calculation of future savings and all that, but where's the substance? You have to have the evidence.
Where do the people sit in breakdown versus machinery? If there's a percentage there, so do you know what I mean?
What happens? How much is people dependent and how much is machinery?
Yeah.
I don't have an exact figure on that, but we do a lot of training in root cause problem elimination, as we call it, right? We don't call it root cause failure analysis, because to do the analysis but not eliminating the problem is a waste of time. And there we learn that a lot of it is really human factors. Therefore, and a lack of a good process. Therefore, we recommend that that's one of the last things you do if you're going to improve. Because if you start with root cause analysis, guess what you will find? We didn't plan that job. We didn't schedule that job. We didn't do inspections to find that early. So therefore, you should start by fixing that first. And of course, you do your root causes on the major events, right? But fairly big, I would say we have a contract we work with now. I think they said that 65% of what they had found in their plans were actually lack of preventive maintenance planning and scheduling.
Okay. What about the way things do move quickly, especially in a technological sense? That I'm assuming there are things that, new processes or new machinery that comes in and they get slotted in quickly, and there's probably not the time, of the perceived sense of time, to actually get them in and working properly under that root cause planning problem process.
No, you can't do root causes before you had something to do the root cause on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, something must have happened first. And so it can be difficult to do that on new equipment. But remember one thing, that equipment never breaks down. It's always a component of equipment that breaks down. And that's where you do the root cause, your PM on, and so forth. And with that, I mean an electric motor. It could be a coupling. It could be a control valve. It could be a sensor, whatever it is. But these components are the same. It's only the environment they operate in different plants that differ. So, if you look at new piece of equipment, you can always analyze, of course, how reliability will be by doing reliability block diagrams, which you, of course, hope that they've done already in the design phase.
Okay. How do you go with the idea, and this has come up a couple of times at the mainstream conference, of dealing with the things that you don't know will come?
I don't think there are many things that you don't know. Of course there are, because of circumstances and so forth. But when it comes to equipment, we're pretty much on the components, where the weak point is, what typically can happen. And we really try to keep everything simple. There are so many people trying to make it so complicated. So keep it simple, and therefore many talk about you need to do a failure mode analysis. And we say, hey, on a bearing has 57 failure modes. So are you going to make a failure mode on all of them when you know that with spectrometric oil analysis, wear particle analysis, and vibration analysis, you will catch 98% of all these failures. So we call it symptom instead. Go for what can happen, how will they show up as a symptom, and then what method would you use to detect it. Okay. That's much simpler. Yeah. But, yeah.
Krista, as an older man, and experienced, and someone who's seen, I'm guessing, just about everything, how do you see the younger generation, like when they come up with the new acronyms and hey man, we're gonna put together a
No, I know. It's a big challenge for guys like me. Most are retired at my age, but let's say the people in the 50s and so forth who are managers, and that is the new generation coming in. Mm. I've been in Washington actually with a group of maintenance managers lobbying for more cooperation between industry and schools, vocational schools and so forth, to create an interest for maintenance and to training programs, etc. So that is a challenge, just to get them, because they have different values. My generation, we wanted overtime because that's where we made money. You ask a 25-year-old, would you like a lot of overtime? No. That doesn't make them tick, So you have to learn how what make them tick. Yeah. Well, that's a big challenge, and they just have another attitude to life and work, and perhaps they will be more happy than we were. But you cannot count on that they will stay in your company more than 3 years average, and then they're going to travel around the world for a while, and then they come back to something else. And it is a big challenge. And
so were you able to, in that trip to Washington, work out how to make maintenance and reliability a career for young people?
Yeah.
Make it more attractive?
Yeah. No, actually, there were a bill passed from that. And, well, of course, you read it in my book, and there's some of the latest pages with a nice picture with all of them being there. And that tells a little about that. And there are many, many initiatives going on here, and trying to teach or sell to grandmothers, I think, because they are the influencers of kids, right? And mothers, don't think that you are. And teach them that to go through a technical college and become a professional electrician, plumber, mechanic, welder. It's a good job. Mm. You will always have jobs. You can go through college 4 years and have major in English language and see where you end up in the beginning. You have a huge debt perhaps and so forth, while if you go out as an electrician, you're going to make big money fairly quick, and you can also start your own company, in fact, and so forth.
Okay, so sell it to them another way. I know that in Australia the worm seems to have really turned for the tradie, and so the trades are, they're hard to find, they're expensive to get, and they're constantly working. So that notion of good work is becoming more and more popular, I suppose.
I think it is, and I remember it's a big issue also in Australia, to exactly the same as here.
Yeah. Is the job ever done, Krista? In the sense of, say painting the Sydney Harbour Bridge, they start at one end and they go all the way to the other end and they then go back to the other end, they start again. Is that the same thing for maintenance and asset management?
You mean the concept asset management and maintenance?
Yeah, just that there's no sort of no. You're just shaking your head.
No. Yeah. You see, it's good. Asset management's nothing wrong with it. But in the 1970s, late 60s, when I started really as a consultant, then it was called Tero technology. You can just Google it and see the definition of Tero technology. Well, that sounds good. It was everything from designing equipment to operating equipment to actually getting rid of it, scrapping it. Then the big concept became life cycle cost, and that is really a measurement of all this. And now we call it asset management, and there will soon be something new. It's just confusing, actually. I still stick with life cycle cost, and I describe that. And if you like to call it asset management, fine. But it seems like we have to keep on changing names the whole time.
Yeah.
It must come from consultants, so we can write a new book or something, or get more work with a new concept that is actually the same. And
yeah. How do you go as a consultant as opposed to a practitioner?
How I went from that?
No. How do you go as in a work sense from going, like you're a practitioner and you said you're very happy being a practitioner. So how do you like life as a consultant?
Well, of course, it's nice to be a consultant because you see so much of very poorly organized plans out there. You see so many organizations with so much politics. And, you can feel like I'm not involved in that. Because if you are in a big organization, you have to face all that. And, of course, the challenge as a consultant is, at least in my case, was to balance family life with the enormous amount of traveling I did. And I was lucky to have support from my family, and I was lucky to love traveling and people. And I still like traveling, and my wife and I now we really spend a lot of time traveling.
Okay, that's nice. What keeps you up at night in a work sense? How do you, if you have that 3 o'clock in the morning wake up, do you go? What do you?
If I have maintenance problems in the house. I'm not going to go into detail, but I had a problem where we had a low humming noise at midnight at night in the house, and I couldn't figure it out. I used a stethoscope. I had a vibration meter. You wouldn't believe. I went up at 2 o'clock in the morning, try everything, and then I figured out that was actually when two of the air conditioned units were running same time. That's when I heard the noise, and that it was because one of the ventilators was totally closed. So I opened that and solved the problem and slept well.
Right. So this is your life, isn't it? So
Yeah, in a way.
I wonder, Krista, you spend so much time helping other people.
Yeah.
Do you get to all your own jobs?
Yeah. What do you mean with that? Tell me.
Well, the jobs around the house. Like, are you able to do the jobs that you have to do at your place?
Yeah. Most cases. My wife even told me that, thanks God you're an engineer. And I don't hear that often.
All right. What level of what have you learnt? Have you learnt more from success or failure in your career?
Or both. Absolutely. Failures, of course, but I know what we are proposing and what we suggest to implement. We know it will work because we have some really good success stories in that case, right? And then we see companies that totally fail. So we learn from that too. And we can then see what have the best performers done different than the one who didn't succeed very much. And it came down to, of course, leadership. It came down to leadership, all of it. Or in most cases, I would say all organizations I work with, they know what they actually need to do. It's nothing new in it, really. That's my approach to it.
Okay.
But the best organizations do it. They execute.
And they execute with full buy-in from everybody?
Yeah, they have support from top management, and it has to be long-term support. It can't be next quarter. You won't see the results next quarter. You will see some big hits. Yes, you will. But it will take between 1 and, I would say, 2 to 7 years. And the best plant I worked with was a plant in Mexico, and they made it to world class, and only 2 companies in the whole world have reached our definition of world class, which is very tough. And they made it in 2 years. The other one is a dairy in New Zealand, and it took them about 7 years.
So what's your definition of world class?
Well, we have a very rigid assessment, the way we do it, right? That evaluate about 230 points on the right things to do, because people can do it in different ways. And then we have a guide on how to evaluate that. And then we put points for that. And they get the biggest score point for the execution of these, but also some for documentation. And then we arrive to that. And we've done many of these assessments in Australia and also in New Zealand.
Mm. How many companies do you go into that say, listen, Krista, we're running a world-class operation here? And you turn up and go, well.
No, I don't think so. Some people say we are pretty good, and that has been true.
Mm.
That has been true, but they wanted to have it verified. But, not many of them would call a consultant. Why would they do that?
Yes.
You see, yeah, please.
No, go on.
No, as a consultant, you can't just have cold calls when you sell, for example. You have to be like a doctor. You have to be... people know that you're there, but the client needs to understand they need help. Otherwise, and then they need to know where you are. You can't come into a doctor and say, hey, I need help here because I have a problem with my shoulder. So cut out that part there and take some bone from there and put that in there and stitch it together. Please do that. No, you have to trust that the doctor will say, your problem is really something else here. You have stretched that part, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Okay. It's very sensible. I get the feeling you're a very sensible man. Is there something that you're most proud of that in your career? You've won lots of awards as well. So, but is there something that you really look back at and go, God, that was a great day?
Yeah, there's been a couple of them, and of course it sounds like bragging because it is. But I got a couple of awards from EFNMS, which is the European Federation of Maintenance Organizations or something like that, and from another place here in US. So of course I was proud of that, but most proud when I see that the clients call back and say thank you, and we did this, and we had these results, and the references we have, and of course you can see that in my book there on the last pages. Yeah, when you hear that, I guess you feel like a teacher would feel that when they see their students' success in life, right?
Are you surprised at other people's responses when things do go so well?
Not really. I'm surprised that they actually executed. That they did. And that they followed it. Followed the advice.
How hard is the execution then? I know obviously what you're setting are very tough goals, and obviously very sensible goals from the way you've described them, but how hard is the execution for a business?
It is a culture change, But the easiest to convince is the front line, because they often say, well, we told them, which is mostly their managers, that why don't we do this? We need to do preventive maintenance or whatever it might be. So the resistance is often from accountants that say this will cost money. Yeah, poor maintenance costs money, and good maintenance costs money, and poor maintenance costs more money. But they are so focus-oriented on cost instead of what drives cost. So you have to convince them that if you do these things, that's what will drive the cost in the right direction and reliability up. And of course, down to the course of good maintenance.
Where does the culture change begin then in your process? Do you begin at the senior level or at the ground level?
It has to start at the senior level. It has to start with senior level who commit to this. And you explain to them that, okay, this is where you are now, and this is why we know that. And if you start this, you will actually have more work to do to fix all the problems you have. And then within about a year, that workload will go down and you will start seeing results. And if you don't support that, don't even start this, because you will just disappoint people again. And it will be even more difficult to start another initiative. So you have to have that commitment from the beginning. And we often provide a business case and do it very realistic and so forth. And then we take it down to the managers. You often do this, of course, with a mill plant manager, with a leadership team and the key people in there. Then you have to start by education, telling people this is why you need to do this. This is why how we're gonna do it and help you do it. And this is a picture of what the future will look like. And you have to use certain methods to drive out the fear in the organization, because the people who knows best how inefficient they are is the craftspeople, the tradespeople in the front line. Yeah. Of course they know. So they fear if we do this, they're going to cut us. That will not happen, because you have to show there are so many other things you don't do today that you need to do. And by the way, your attrition rate is at this plant often 30% in 5 years. So your challenge is to find new people. Don't worry about being laid off. And there are many other things, you have to do.
Okay, so it's cultural at the whole level.
Absolutely.
And just on that fear of the tradespeople losing their jobs, going, well, if you bring these consultants in and we're gonna go, what about explaining that change to them? Is there a secret to that?
Because our mission statement is we help organizations improve overall reliability, and by that lowering cost. The money is in improved reliability because that's where the money is. You have a faster and a bigger throughput of product. Your safety will definitely improve. A planned job is a safe job, etc. So you explain this effort is, number one, to improve reliability. And we talk about equipment reliability and also operational reliability. And when they understand that, because if equipment is reliable, it's running, it costs less, of course.
Yeah.
And as you progress, what you're going to do is to shift more from just doing maintenance to actually do root cause and eliminate problems constantly. So you become a thinking and improving organization instead of a reactive. Right?
All right, that's interesting. How many organizations have you been to that are not thinking and improving organizations? They're just organizations getting the job done for now.
Oh, many. That's the companies we work with in many cases.
Okay.
They can have 70% reactive work that is assigned the same day as it's going to be executed on a daily basis. And when you explain the difference you can make here, people say, yeah, we know that, but you have to have support to get it done, and they need training. And when we do training, we say, well, it's a waste of time really to do a training in planning and scheduling without immediately after that implement what you have been teaching and agreed on. So as a minimum, you do that training perhaps related to their organization, use their examples, etc., etc., etc. And that might take me 3 days or something, with 2 days on site before. And after that, no less than 3 weeks, most probably 6 weeks, on the job training of the front line. Just to get a meeting to run efficiently, just to get operations to show up to the meeting. I mean, there are a lot of these things. It's people.
Krista, is there anything that you've seen that you wish you had have thought of?
Yes, there is. Absolutely. It's almost every day I work, especially with the frontline people, and they show me examples how they've done things and why it happened and so forth. I learn so much from these people, and I try to remember some of them, but I don't have an example immediately on my mind. But it's a constant learning process.
Okay, and maybe that's one of the reasons that you're so good is that
just one thing, for example, with the lubrication, where one of the mechanics pointed out that we have a lot of problems with the lubrication and lubrication-related problems with this bearing. And he said, you know something, that is because the lube line is about 5 meters long. So before the fresh grease reaches that bearing, well, it's pretty old and it can be not good to use at all. It's a kind of an obvious thing, right? But after that, I always check things like that.
Yeah, but the obvious stuff is not obvious until it's obvious.
That's true.
If that makes sense.
That's true.
All right. Look, just finally, is there a mantra that you, and I'm going to assume there's a mantra that you live by? Like earlier you said, the good maintenance costs money, poor maintenance costs more money. Is that, what you've got written above your morning mirror as you're shaving? Sort of, morning, Krista. What do you have?
We help our clients improve reliability, and by doing so, we will lower their manufacturing cost.
Right. Jeez, that's just such an engineering thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah. That's very true. My wife is the absolute opposite. She's Italian-French.
Okay.
Very explosive combination.
So I guess that works well.
Total opposite, I put fact before emotions perhaps too much. She's totally emotional.
So how does the I don't want to get personal. How does the house work then?
The house at home.
Yeah. Because if you're this rigid, process-driven, European man, and here you've got this emotional.
It works fine. You mean on a relationship basis?
Yeah. But also just the way a family works.
We have a lot of fun about that. Very much fun about it, and we know that is the case. And of course, we both change, because in any relationship, the key word is to really compromise, and learn, and that's it. And the absolute most important word in a marriage is yes, dear.
You'll get in trouble for that if she hears it.
No, but I often say that. Yes, dear. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, Krista, it's what a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And the book is definitely there and a great resource and an updated resource. And also with IDCON, there is that whole YouTube channel, but also other resources as well. So there's a stack of your information that's available to everyone.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this very, very much.